The alert pinged my inbox at 7:01 a.m. on a dreary Thursday, even before my first coffee. Subject, stepping up our image, adorned the 3 sparkling shoe emojis, so typical of Brooke. I scanned it quickly, then again, corporate jargon masquerading as policy. But there it was, hidden in the second paragraph like a tripwire. Effective immediately, all personnel must adhere to updated appearance guidelines, particularly concerning non-traditional textile selections. I didn't need a memo to know who that targeted. Nobody else in federal compliance wore tailored wool slacks or sharp structured blazers. The rest arrived daily in baggy chinos, cheap synthetics, or discount pencil skirts that rode up with a vengeance. But me? I dressed like I commanded respect. And apparently, that made me a threat, because Brooke Hastings, 32, HR director, a professional grudge holder in nude pumps, couldn't tolerate women she couldn't control. It started months prior when she accidentally saw my salary. I'll never forget her smile freezing as she realized I wasn't some junior analyst earning paltry wages. Since then, I'd felt a bullseye on my back. My Aries nature, always ready for a challenge, sensed a growing defiance. By 10:13 a.m., Brooke sauntered past my workstation, her signature vanilla mist preceding her by a full second. She lingered, then leaned in, using that fake friendly voice. "Oh, hey, Zara," she purred, drawing out my name as if savoring it. "Just checking in. Had a chance to review the updated dress policy?" I didn't even glance up. I did. Nothing in there applies to me. 2 seconds later, like clockwork, Kelsey Shaw appeared, Brooke's shadow, the type who'd betray her own mother for a commendation. "We're really striving for a cohesive visual identity, you know," Kelsey chirped. "Sometimes older styles send mixed messages." I finally met their gaze. My voice remained even. Mixed messages to whom? Capitol Hill security? Kelsey's grin wavered. Brooke smirked. "Just ensuring we're aligned," Brooke said sweetly. "Some individuals don't realize when they're pushing boundaries." I set my mug down. I don't push boundaries. I define them. Section 12A of the Federal Compliance Manual supersedes any HR directive. I'm sure you read that, if you read at all. Her jaw clenched. The smile persisted, but her eyes were cold. And just like that, they turned and whispered away, as if dethroning a prom queen. I watched them depart, that familiar chill settling in my chest. I'd faced this before. A manager forgetting my promotion forms, training an analyst who then bypassed me 6 months later. Office politics weren't new. But this felt different. This was reckless, and reckless people are dangerous. At 2:04 p.m., Brooke returned. Same perfume, same strained smile. This time, she circled my desk like a shark that had devoured too many leadership articles. "Oh, wow," she announced, voice syrupy and loud enough for Kelsey to hear 3 desks away. "Those trousers are intriguing." I blinked slowly. Charcoal gray, tailored wool, with a subtle herringbone weave so fine it might as well have been woven by specters. Brooke had clearly appointed herself the fashion arbiter of fabrics. "I wasn't sure if you'd seen the handbook update," she continued. "Section 14B, you did read it, right?" I took a sip of my coffee. "I edited it. Found 3 typos, by the way." Kelsey let out a snort. Brooke forced a laugh and cocked her hip. "It's about cohesion. Team synergy starts with fabric integrity," Kelsey chirped again. I rotated my chair toward them, spine ramrod straight. "Is this a formal HR complaint?" Brooke hesitated. "Oh no, just a conversation, woman to woman." "Good," I stated, "because my contract doesn't include fake conversations about personal taste masquerading as policy." Out of my peripheral vision, I caught Paul Fletcher, my supervisor, lingering in the hallway, observing. He met my eyes, then bolted. Coward. Brooke leaned in, dropping her voice but maintaining the fake sweetness. "Just ensuring we're perceived as reliable professionals, especially with sensitive government projects approaching. We wouldn't want the wrong impression." There it was. So, she knew something major was brewing, or thought she did. I met her gaze directly. The Department of Defense cares about classified data, not pinstripes. Her smile barely fractured before she spun and walked off. But I knew this wasn't about dress codes. It was about control. And control? Control had a price. I glanced down at my bag, where my black FCA-issued badge sat zippered inside, silent and waiting. Clearance level, top secret. The kind of clearance requiring 6 months of vetting, home inspections, extensive background checks. The kind of clearance this entire $50 million contract hinged upon. I smiled to myself. As an Aries, I was ready for the fight. I didn't expect the official meeting invite so soon. 3:12 p.m. Subject: HR matter. Immediate attention required. No body text, no explanation, just a time slot. 15 minutes from now in room 3C. I stared at the screen. For a moment, I considered declining. But declining wasn't an option. Not in a company where "we value open dialogue" was corporate code for comply or else. I locked my terminal. The soft beep of my security badge felt louder than usual. I stood up. It felt like walking to my own execution. The office around me hummed with feigned activity. Eyes flickered up, then darted away. Everyone knew. They always did. I walked past the interns pretending to scroll spreadsheets, past Paul's office door, blinds drawn, lights off, of course. When I stepped into room 3C, Brooke was already at the head of the table, iPad perfectly angled, like she was hosting a TED Talk on passive-aggressive management. To her right sat Kelsey, nervously twirling a pink gel pen. To the left, Gary Thompson, Senior Operations Manager. The same Gary who once complimented my 70-page audit summary by saying, "That's a lot of words for compliance stuff." He looked wildly uncomfortable, as if promised a quick witness role, not front-row seats to a termination. "Zara," Brooke said with her faux warm smile, "thanks for joining us." "I was ordered to," I replied, sitting with the practiced calm of someone facing a mirror. Kelsey cleared her throat and unfolded a printed script, a literal script, her hands shaking just enough to crinkle the paper. "This is a formal termination meeting," she began, voice rehearsed, "conducted in accordance with corporate procedure outlined in Section 8B of the Employee Accountability Guidelines." I blinked once. Brooke interjected, eyes gleaming. "Due to repeated noncompliance with the updated dress code and a pattern of insubordination, the company has no choice but to terminate your employment, effective immediately." Kelsey slid a 2-page document across the table. "Final notice," stamped across the top in bold red. I scanned it. My name, employee ID, defiance, that word appeared 3 times. No mention of my clearance, no mention of performance metrics. Nothing about the 6-figure contract I'd managed for months. Just buzzwords like team cohesion and cultural alignment. I felt nothing. No anger, no panic, just a hollow void where belief used to be. Belief that competence still mattered here. "I see," I said quietly. "So, just to be clear, I'm being terminated for dress code violations?" Brooke nodded. "Among other behavioral concerns, yes." "Such as?" Kelsey fumbled. "Tone, resistance, comments perceived as undermining leadership." Brooke cut in, voice low and sharp. "Let's not make this harder than it has to be." I gave a dry laugh. No humor, just expelled air. "You already did that when you turned woven wool into a crime." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "We have standards," Brooke said. "You have obsessions," I countered. "I have clearance." That landed like a punch. Brooke opened her mouth, but nothing clever emerged. A flicker of movement caught my eye, the glass wall behind them. On my locked terminal, a notification pulsed softly. "FCA, system check-in overdue." Brooke noticed it, smirked. "Guess you won't be needing that anymore." I said nothing. I just stared at the blinking alert. They hadn't connected the dots. Not yet. Kelsey spoke softer now. Someone from IT will escort you out. Please collect your belongings. I stood up smoothly, calmly. Wouldn't want to cause a security breach, I remarked. Brooke gave a tight little laugh. Let's not be dramatic, Zara. I turned toward the door, then stopped, looked back at them. You just fired the only person in this building who knows how to keep your government contract from collapsing like a dollar store tent. 3 faces, blank, uncomprehending. I smiled, slow and sharp. Enjoy your fabric integrity. My Aries spirit whispered, this isn't over. The walk back to my desk felt longer than any I'd taken in that building. I kept my head high. I didn't slam my keyboard. I didn't send a fiery email. I just packed. They'd given me one of those insultingly small cardboard boxes, barely enough space for a mug and a framed photo, sympathy-sized. I started with the essentials, the photo of my sister and me at Zion Canyon, my legal pad full of compliance notes and procurement deadlines, the small cactus I'd kept alive for 3 years, despite Kelsey's overwatering attempts. I left the rest. The spreadsheets, the half-finished reports, the encrypted data logs blinking quietly on my monitor. They'd need those, and without me, they wouldn't understand any of it. At the bottom of my desk drawer sat my black FCA clearance badge, the one I'd earned after 6 months of vetting, background checks, and surprise home inspections. I picked it up slowly, like it was a live wire. It wasn't flashy, just a slim black card with a barely visible RFID chip and a number printed at the bottom. A number that unlocked federal databases they didn't even know existed. I slipped it into its protective sleeve, labeled Property of FCA, Do Not Discard. I zipped it into my bag, heart steady. I wasn't angry, not yet. I stood, box in hand, and made my way toward the exit. First stop, marketing. No one spoke a word. Chloe Davis looked up, blinked, and immediately dropped her eyes back to her screen. Leo Stone gave a quick nod, the kind you give someone you barely know in the frozen aisle at Whole Foods Market. Next, accounting. One of the interns mouthed, "I'm so sorry," eyes wide as if I'd just received a terminal diagnosis. I gave a polite, dead-eyed smile. By the time I reached my cubicle, Paul was standing there, hands stuffed in his pockets like a guilty teenager. "Hey, Zara," he stammered. "Sorry to see you go." I tilted my head. "Are you?" His mouth opened, then closed. After a beat, he gave a quick nod. "Well, good luck out there." I stared at his back as he scurried off down the hallway, straight into the warm safety of corporate cowardice. I packed the last of my things in silence. No tears, no trembling, just a slow, simmering pressure crawling up my spine. The weight of public humiliation. Not loud, not explosive, the quiet kind. The kind that settles deep in your bones and echoes with every fake, "Are you okay?" I took the elevator down alone. At the front desk, the IT guy, Evan Price, waited for me. He looked everywhere but at my face as he handed over a sealed envelope. "Final paycheck, Cobra info," he mumbled. "Lovely," I said, dropping it into the box like trash. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. I turned to face the lobby. I watched it shrink away. The fake plants, the fake smiles, the fake everything, until the doors slid shut. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even mad. But something inside me shifted. A cold, sharp clarity. They thought this was over. They thought they'd handled the problem. They had no idea what they'd just triggered. My Aries conviction hardened. I was halfway across the lobby, the envelope crumpling in my box, when the glass doors swung open behind me. It wasn't a client or an interview candidate fumbling with a resume. It was 2 people, a man and a woman. Matching dark suits, clean lines, quiet, confident movements. No logos, no name tags, just black lapel pins with a small silver ring. The unmistakable insignia of the Federal Compliance Agency. The woman, Agent Sterling, walked half a step ahead, scanning the room as if casing it. The man, Agent Hayes, flanked her, postured tight as a coiled spring. They weren't here for onboarding. I froze. I'd seen FCA agents before during my clearance process. They didn't knock unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. They stopped at the front desk. Agent Sterling leaned in, voice low but firm. "We need to speak with Arthur Jenkins, head of security, and Richard Maxwell, your CEO, immediately." The receptionist blinked. "They're in meetings. Can I—" Agent Hayes cut in. "Not a request." The receptionist fumbled for the phone like her hands have gone numb. I stayed where I was, the box heavy in my arms, my pulse suddenly loud in my ears. I didn't know what had triggered this. I didn't know how fast word had traveled. But I knew one thing. The government had noticed, and the people in that building were about to find out exactly what they'd done. My Aries intuition flared, sensing the coming storm. I stood perfectly still, box in hand, breath shallow. I watched as the receptionist hung up the phone, her face pale, fingers trembling slightly as she set the receiver back. They'll be down in just a minute," she whispered to the agents. Agent Sterling gave a single nod. Agent Hayes didn't even blink. I knew their kind. They weren't here for a friendly policy chat. FCA didn't do friendly chats. I shifted slightly, adjusting my bag strap. From the corner of my eye, I caught Agent Hayes scanning the lobby. His gaze swept past me, lingered for half a second, then moved on. He didn't recognize me. Not yet. I stared straight ahead, willing my heart to stay steady. Whatever happened next, I wasn't the one in trouble. I'd followed protocol. Every line, every clause, every absurd security check. I'd colored inside the lines so precisely that if they'd wanted to find fault, they'd have had to draw new lines themselves. A sharp ding cut through the air. The executive elevator, not the regular one. The doors opened fast, controlled, and out stepped Brooke. She was trying to walk like nothing was wrong, chin up, posture stiff, but her face pale, too pale. The kind of pale that comes from realizing you've just kicked a hornet's nest with a baseball bat. Kelsey stumbled out behind her, clipboard nowhere in sight. They both moved fast, cutting across the lobby with the false confidence of people hoping they weren't about to lose everything. Brooke didn't even glance at me until she passed. Her eyes flickered toward mine for a second, then jerked away like I'd burned her. I didn't smile, I didn't even blink. I just watched. She disappeared into a conference room with the two agents, the door clicking shut. The lobby fell quiet again. That strange humming silence you only hear in offices after something explodes. I could see heads popping up behind cubicles, pretending to look for printer paper or stretch their backs, anything but openly admit they were desperate to know what was happening. The voices inside the room started low, then sharper. I couldn't make out the words, but fragments floated out, jagged as broken glass. Unauthorized access, clearance breach, protocol violation. I stood there, box in hand, my pulse flattening out into something calm, like a wire stretched so tight it didn't even tremble. My Aries calm, paradoxical but potent. It didn't take long, maybe 5 minutes. And then he arrived. Richard Maxwell, the CEO, sweating, breathless, necktie yanked crooked like he'd tried to strangle himself on the elevator ride down. He bulldozed straight past the receptionist, ignored the front desk, eyes locked on me like I was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. "Zara," he said, smiling, too wide, too forced, "would you mind stepping into my office just for a quick chat?" I didn't move. "I no longer work here," I said, loud enough for half the lobby to hear. "You'll have to make an appointment." His jaw worked, throat bobbing as if he couldn't decide whether to plead or order. "Please, it'll only take a minute." I stood up, slow, deliberate. I leveled my eyes at him, that sharp edge of calm I'd been perfecting for years settling into place. "I'm sure your team can handle it," I said. "After all, it's just fabric, right?" The color drained from his face like someone had pulled the plug. I brushed past him. No rush, no glance back, just steady steps toward the glass doors. Behind me, I heard the conference room door open again. Brooke came out, shaking, hands clasped together as if trying to hold herself upright. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. I knew the look on her face. I'd seen it before. The exact moment a person realizes they've set a fire they can't put out. She started to say something, some breathless excuse, some corporate speak defense, but I didn't give her the stage. I kept walking. I didn't need to see their faces. I'd already seen them, and they looked exactly like justice. I'd barely made it 5 steps across the lobby when I heard the footsteps. Not the shuffle of interns, not the nervous tap of Kelsey's kitten heels. No, these footsteps were steady, controlled, the kind of walk that didn't rush because it never had to. I turned just as the FCA agents approached. Agent Sterling, judging by the name on her lapel pin, gave me a brief nod. "Ms. Vance?" she asked, her voice low. "Even. Still am, unless you're here to revoke that, too." Agent Hayes gave the faintest hint of a smile. "We understand today's events were unexpected," he said. "We'd like a moment of your time." Behind them, I caught sight of Richard and Brooke standing near the ficus plant, both looking like they'd been hollowed out. Richard's dress shirt clung to him with damp streaks of sweat. Brooke's eyes were red-rimmed, her hands shaking slightly. They weren't moving. They weren't speaking. They weren't in charge anymore. I nodded once. Of course. The agents flanked me, one on each side, but not in a way that felt hostile, more like respect, or perhaps precaution. We didn't head into the conference room where Brooke and Richard had been cornered moments before. Instead, Agent Sterling guided us toward the seating area near reception, out in the open, where the entire floor could see a message. I wasn't being detained. I wasn't in trouble. I was the one they wanted cooperation from. Agent Hayes spoke first. "We're reviewing the protocol breach related to your termination. Your clearance record is frankly impeccable. Your work on the Q3 classified data audit flagged attention at the federal level." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. I followed procedure. Agent Sterling nodded back. "Exactly, which is why we're hoping you'll assist with the next phase of the project. The contract still stands. The contractor, however—" She let the words trail off, glancing toward Richard, who now looked like a man watching his career slip through his fingers. Richard took a slow step forward, his voice trembling with that special blend of desperation and corporate panic. "Zara, let's be reasonable here." I looked at him dead on. "Reasonable?" He rushed in, words tripping over each other. "Obviously, mistakes were made on both sides. I want to formally offer you your position back." I didn't move. "And a raise," he added quickly, 15%, senior title. We'll put it in writing right now." The entire lobby fell silent. Even the receptionist had stopped typing. A junior executive outside the glass doors paused mid-vape. I tilted my head, letting the words hang there for a moment. "The salary you can afford," I said slowly, "wouldn't even cover the therapy I'd need to forget working for you." Dead silence. Richard opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He turned toward the agents. Maybe we could work something out." Agent Sterling shook her head, calm but final. "We'll handle this. The government still needs this project completed, just not by you." I allowed myself the smallest smile. For the first time all day, it felt good. Not revenge, not triumph, just right. Agent Hayes gave me a nod. "We have a field office nearby. You'll be compensated for your time, of course." Richard looked like he'd been punched in the throat. Brooke, still hovering nearby, looked like she might faint. Mascara smudged, lips parted as if she was about to argue, but nothing came. Kelsey? Nowhere in sight. Probably hiding in a supply closet, clutching her clipboard like a security blanket. My Aries sense of justice was well served. I adjusted my bag strap. "Let's go," I said. As we walked toward the exit, the entire office seemed to hold its breath. I didn't look back, because I didn't need to. They weren't the ones walking out with the agents. I was. We stepped out into the afternoon heat. Agent Sterling on my left, Agent Hayes on my right. And for a brief moment, it felt like the whole world had shifted beneath my feet. Not because I'd been fired, not because I'd walked out in front of half the office, but because for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying their weight on my back. I was free. We crossed the parking lot in silence. Halfway to their government-issued black sedan, Agent Hayes' phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression tightening by half a degree. "1 minute," he said quietly. He turned on his heel and walked briskly back toward the building. I didn't follow. Neither did Agent Sterling. We both stood there watching as the glass doors swung open again, swallowing him back into the corporate mausoleum I'd just escaped. Inside, the office fell into that eerie silence I'd come to know too well, the silence of people waiting for the sky to fall. Through the glass, I watched Agent Hayes stride past the front desk, past the frozen receptionist, straight into the executive conference room. No knock, no hesitation. Richard was inside, hands on his hips, trying hard to project authority he no longer had. Brooke hovered behind him, smaller somehow, like the air had been sucked out of her. Hayes dropped a manila folder onto the glass table. The conversation started low. Richard's mouth moved faster than his words. Brooke's eyes darted like a trapped animal. Then Hayes opened the folder. I couldn't hear the words. I didn't need to. I watched Richard's face change, not gradually, but in a single snap. First confusion, then recognition, then devastation. He sat down hard, like someone had pulled the bones out of him. Brooke backed up until her shoulders hit the glass wall. Her lips moved. I could read it even from here. How? No answer came. When Hayes stepped back out, he walked like a man who had just delivered a death sentence. I raised an eyebrow as he approached. All good? He gave a single nod. They've been notified. Of, I asked, already knowing the answer. Full federal audit. Breach of protocol, contract invalidated. They're under immediate review. I exhaled, slow and steady. Behind him, Richard followed, eyes hollow, face damp with the sweat of a man who knew exactly what this meant. $50 million in government contracts? Gone. Future federal partnerships? Gone. Company reputation shredded beyond repair. And Brooke? She trailed behind Richard, mascara streaked, face pale, her world unraveling thread by thread. She didn't look at me. Couldn't. Hayes and Sterling flanked me again as we walked toward the car. Sterling broke the silence first. You handled that well. I handled it quietly, I replied. There's a difference. Sterling smiled, a real one. She reached into her coat and handed me a card. Simple, cream-colored, no title, just a name, a direct number, and a faint FCA seal embossed like a silent promise. We subcontract oversight roles, she said, her tone deliberate. Especially when primary contractors aren't compliant. I turned the card over between my fingers. The pay better? Sterling's smile deepened. Better and cleaner. I gave a small laugh. He worked for the government. Clean isn't exactly the word I'd use. We work with people who understand protocol, she said. People who don't flinch when idiots in HR try to wield power they don't understand. People who know when to stay quiet and when not to. I slipped the card into my pocket next to my badge. We didn't shake hands, didn't make promises, just a quiet understanding. My Aries drive already looking forward. By the time I reached my car, the sky had started to clear. The clouds pulled apart in soft streaks, and the sun cut through like a spotlight on a stage I'd finally stepped off of. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. They'd spend months picking up the pieces, trying to explain how they'd fumbled a federal contract over a pair of dress pants, trying to rewrite history and performance reviews and board meetings. But I'd be gone, and they'd never forget my name. I unlocked my car, tossed the envelope with my final paycheck onto the passenger seat, and sat for a moment, just breathing in the quiet. I wasn't just walking away from a job. I was stepping into the world I'd built, thread by thread, in the shadows of people who thought they owned me. They didn't. They never did.